All right. So I think we can start now. All right. So I think this is the fourth class, is it, Arif?
Yes, Doctor.
All right. So we continue from the previous class. All right. Uh, maybe, all right, because I tend to forget, all right, to allow, question and answer during the lecture, which I think it's best that we keep the Q&A at the end so that we don't disrupt the flow. All right, we don't disrupt the flow of the class, the reading. All right. But like last class, I took one question because it was obvious, because it was relevant. But then there were participants who had other questions, but because I carried on and I, forgot to give the time. So perhaps if any of you now, before we start, all right, have any questions, all right, related to the previous classes, you may do so, all right, now before we start.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. If I may ask a question.
Waalaikumsalam. Yes, Sister Afsana, is it?
My name is Afsana.
Yes.
Doctor, I just want some clarification on the self-concealing aspect, al-batin, and the self-revealing aspect, al-zahir too. Thank you.
All right. Of course, you can say at the highest level, all right, of being or existence, wujud, that's the self-concealing aspect, in the sense that, only, or what, the scholars refer to here in relation, since we are dealing with Prof. Al-Attas text, he mentioned it is referred to, but in our Islamic metaphysical tradition, all right, and I have to mention here, because a lot of people think that Islamic metaphysics really did not originate from the Quran or Hadith. They think it's from Greek philosophy, because after all, metaphysics as a discipline and the name itself originated from, you would say, Aristotle. All right. So, but it is from our own Islamic tradition. All right. I mean, from the Quran, which is the highest source of knowledge, and that is the essence. All right, that's the self-concealing, in the sense that's the essence, or the mis al-ama, all right, or the hidden treasure. So at that level, all right, we as a creation, all right, or human beings, all right, even with the intellect, all right, cannot conceive of being, all right, or God. Basically, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all right, at that level. Only He Himself knows Himself. So that's basically the self-concealing, all right, because like I mentioned, all right, the matter, the hidden treasure, all right, when you say a hidden treasure, it's hidden, and nobody knows about this hidden treasure, all right. But at the same time, as Prof mentioned, all right, it necessitates manifestation, all right, so that we may know, and that is basically the love to be known, wanting to be known, the desire to be known. That's why He created creation. So that's the highest level, that self-concealing, which we spoke about. But all right, then that is the you can say it is still, all right, at the level of you can say at that level is beyond absoluteness, all right, because when you talk about absoluteness, itlaq, all right, and that in itself, all right, is a limitation, right? When you say absolute, that's a limitation. But at that self-sealing level, all right, it is beyond any limitation. All right, so that's why we cannot describe. All right, that's why we cannot describe, because it's beyond any kind of limitation. All right, because when in terms of concepts, as we have seen, and basically this is what we are trying to, we will do today. All right, because concepts are about limitations. And we know through concepts, right? Conceptual. That's, we know God through concepts, except, all right, those, all right, who, but of course, the highest level is those who experience, all right, reality. The reality of wujud. Okay? So, what I meant was conceptual. When you talk about concepts, all right, they refer to limitations, because like when we talk about the concept, all right, we always, and Prof himself also always use the concept of human, all right, insan, human being, as rational animal. So that's a limitation. Okay, in the sense that what is the limitation that the human being, all right, comes under, or in that limitation, that limited group of animal, higher one. And then, all right, meaning that the human being as a species falls under that group. So it's a limitation. The genus is a limitation. All right, and then the specific difference, all right, the first, in the sense that what is, all right, you would say the quality, all right, which distinguish, all right, a human being with other animals within that genus of animal. Isn't it limitation? All right, that's how he says conceptually, all right, we know things through definition. All right, had, or description, ras. Okay, so another question, all right, so so basically that's how concepts are formed. And remember, I mentioned, so the concept of existence, all right, is the most well-known or the most universal concept, right? Because in terms of when you want to define all other things, you must refer back to the concept of existence, right? You cannot speak about anything if it doesn't exist, in the sense, all right, knowing the thing itself. So it's the most general and universal of concept, all right, in terms of existence, all right, because in the sense that everything else exists, all right, when you talk about things, they all exist. And so there cannot be a concept more known than existence. But for example, human being as rational animal, it is more known. I mean, what is more known than human being is animal, right? And what is more known, all right, than animal as a living being, all right, is existence, in the sense that they exist. Okay, but what is more known than existence? There's nothing else conceptually. All right. In terms of the general concept of existence. All right. So just now, just to finish off, all right. Yeah, when we start taking questions, all right. There will be many questions. Perhaps what I can do is maybe just have one session where I try, inshallah, to answer the questions. All right. And so, the flow of the reading we will continue to read the text, because basically that is the purpose of the class itself, all right, to read the text. But, all right, I know there are many questions. Okay, so we can put aside maybe one class just for you to ask the questions. So just to finish off my answer to Sister Afsana, all right, but that is, you can say, the hiddenmost, all right, the butun, where, all right, Allah Ta'ala is not known at all. He's not only known to himself. But, all right, by the very nature of existence, there must be manifestation. If not, all right, if he is at that level, then if there's no creation, all right, then how do we know that there is this being? All right. So, and of course, the hadith itself, that I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. So I created creation so that I may be known. And that's a hadith Qudsi. All right. Hadith Qudsi meaning, all right, that is Allah Ta'ala, God speaking by the tongue of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All right. So, that you can say generally that batin, zahir, that is the where from the concealing aspect, all right, Allah reveals himself through manifestation. All right, and we will, as we go along, there are many terms: ta'ayyun, tajalli, all right, tashahus, individuation, many to explain. You will ask, why are there so many terms? All right, because there are many degrees of existence. And then you will see wujud, mawjud, all right, or wujudat even, all right, and that's the term by Mullah Sadra. We won't go into that. All right, so that's the reason. So that's the aspect of revelation. Allah loves to be known, wants to be known. All right, and so that you can say the zahir aspect, the exteriorizing, all right, the exteriorizing of that interior aspect. But if you see more specifically, all right, at each level, I think at the earlier level, there is that concealing and that inward, all right, the batin, and the outward aspect. All right, we haven't gone to that level, but soon, okay, where you see we have explained, okay, a little bit, but you can see Prof's diagram there. All right, on page 274. Siapa? Arif, can you maybe you can share, or I have to share?
Sure, madam, sure. I will share it.
Thank you. Page 274, yeah, Arif? That diagram. Yeah. So he draws the diagram already. The essence, all right, of the ultimate reality, which is existence. All right, there is that interior aspect, which you call the batin, and the exterior aspect. Like, we read, there is already the stirring, But still, all right, at this level, all right, it is non-condition and non-manifestation. All right, that interior aspect is the totally unknowable, but also that exterior aspect, all right, of this absolute oneness, al-ama, all right, or the abstract oneness. This is the first degree, right? Abstract oneness, Khan's mahfi. There is the interior and the exterior. That interior, we do not know, but the exterior also, it hasn't manifested. But like Prof said, there's already the inner articulation, the inner stirring, all right, in himself. All right, but it is not yet manifested, not yet externally manifested, but in himself. All right, Prof already mentioned that on that movement, that you can say ontological movement, because it's a movement of being, because basically it's all being, isn't it? All right, so, and that's the process of the most holy effusion, al-fight al-Attas. All right, we haven't gone yet to the nitty-gritty of it, all right, in the sense of reading the text from it. Okay, Sister Afsana, I hope I have answered your question, all right, at least a little bit. You
Yes.
will basically, inshallah, all right, even if after you read the chapter, all right, full understanding, all right, you may still not yet fully, all right, I mean, I am speaking from my own experience, all right, it comes slowly, and that's why you have to engage with the text, because when you read all these terms, it will sink in, all right, not as if you go to a classroom lecture, the teacher explain, all right, the concept, you learn the definition, or will give an example. It's different. That's why this one, there is the process also, you are engaging in the process. And when you are engaging, it's what we call contemplating. All right, that's why in our Islamic tradition, we need contemplation. All right, contemplation is a necessary requirement, I would think. All right, if you are really a student of the Islamic intellectual tradition, all right, you contemplate on what is being written. All right, it's just not, yes, of course, at the lowest level is the mental understanding. But when you go and read, all right, and it is just not one time reading. All right, this is from my experience. Of course, all right, there are many gifted people. They can just intuit have the intuition through inspired knowledge. All right, they can understand and what is meant. All right, that's Alhamdulillah. Okay, and I also want to mention, okay, all right, this is part of studying our intellectual sciences. We are not saying, all right, that you have to go through this path of wanting to learn, okay, academically or in this way. All right, for you to experience and have knowledge of reality. All right, knowledge of reality of existence, which Prof is saying here. All right, there are those who you would say they are ignorant of all these terms, all right, of all these terminologies, and basically of trying to understand in a way systematically what we're trying to understand systematically. And still remember, this is still at the conceptual level. For some people, this is not their way, all right, but they can experience reality. All right. So we are not saying, oh, all right, if you already have full knowledge of metaphysics, Islamic metaphysics, then you have arrived at ma'rifah. All right, because the highest level of knowledge is ma'rifah. They say ma'rifatullah or ma'rifah billah, all right, meaning knowledge of God, the highest level. All right, we are not guaranteeing that, but of course, all right, when you this path is the path of knowledge in the sense that, all right, it will open up, yourself, it will open up not mind but the intellect, the al-akal. All right, and the al-akal in our Islamic intellectual tradition, all right, is connected, all right, to the source of all being, because that akala to bind, all right, and it's through knowledge. The Muslim scholars, for example, the philosophers, they say that you can, all right, know, that means know Allah Ta'ala through the path of knowledge. And this path of knowledge, what is the, you would say, the channel, all right, the channel of knowledge, or you would say the the faculty, all right, that is in the human being is the akal. And here the akal is not the mind, all right, not the mind as at the level of reason alone, logic. Of course, we use a lot of logic here, logical definitions, all right, but akal as a source of knowledge in the Islamic tradition is also, all right, has to do with the spiritual level. All right, so that's why there's the concept of tazkiyatun nafs, the purification of the soul, meaning virtues must be present also. All right, they say, I don't want to go into all this, the different spiritual faculties like the heart, the qalb, the nafs, the akal. All right, they are basically the spiritual faculties. All right, so, and therefore you must have virtues. Virtues meaning the fadilat, all right, the humility, the the generosity, the patience, the gratitude. All right, so that's why must. So this is how it is open. It's not just something which is mental. All right, that's not enough. So in terms of learning, all right, studying the sciences, the Islamic disciplines, all right, we also have there's such a thing as opening, all right, or they say inshirah, meaning basically opening up your chest, all right, or so that the knowledge must come in. So then, or they will say that you must polish your mirror. There are many expressions, all right, how in our tradition, all right, in terms of how we attain knowledge. And of course, knowledge is, you would say is comes, all right, or at there are many levels of knowledge. And that's why, all right, the subject of classification of knowledge is very important. And that's why Sufis there are Sufi scholars, there are philosophers, there are theologians, who writes about this classification of knowledge in the sense that, the knowledge from the lowest level to the highest level. Okay, in our tradition, the highest level is, of course, knowledge of God. What else is that? All right, so what I am trying to say just now is that don't think, all right, that you have to learn like how we are doing, all right, formally in that sense, knowing the tradition formally, knowing the terminology, and the subject matter, it's how they are classified. Okay, this is of course the path of knowledge of in that sense. All right, because you have to know. All right, that in you would say ilmiah, scientifically. But like I want also to mention, there are people like they say all, they don't know all these things, but they have experienced it. All right, but perhaps they have not written about it. They have not discussed or discussed about it because these are not available to them. But we learn from those who have, you would say, experience. All right, and some have written about their experience. For example, Mullah Sadra, Sadruddin Shirazi, all right, his full name, and then Imam Al-Ghazali, and many others, all right, who have experience and they articulate it and write it, all right, in their works. And that's how we learn. All right, so so this is how we are doing things, but I am not excluding those people, all right, who do not study all this, all right, formally, or you would say in a scientific, or in a you would say discipline way, in terms of the discipline itself. You wouldn't say they are excluded from attaining this knowledge, all right, because you see of many very wise and old people, all right, who have so much wisdom, and they can explain to you without going through all this terminology. But of course, because we know that it is a gift from Allah Ta'ala, all right, and He gives to whomever He wills. All right, He guides whomever He wills. All right, Allah yahdi man yasha bighairi hisab. All right, so that is what I want to mention, because there are people who do not want to go through this path, and the sad thing is they also look down, all right, and they say they look down on this path, where we go into very specific things, into technicalities, into trying to understand conceptually. But like, what's the purpose of the akal, all right, or the intellect, but to know, all right? So, and our path is through this, all right? I mean, those who are interested, okay, who in studying this discipline, because it might occur, all right, to you, why are you doing this, or cracking your heads and trying to remember, and then you say, oh, this is the first level, this is the term, and this is the process, all right. But actually, the experience of reality, it transcends all this. When you experience the reality, all right, do you say, oh, I am experiencing Allah at this level of absolute existence, all right? You don't. You experience, all right, Allah, and He is the one. You experience the oneness of Allah Ta'ala despite the manifestations, the infinite manifestations of things. You can go, you would say, go outside the veil, or there are many terms also in our tradition. They say lift the veil, mukashafa. All right, that's the signs of the mukashafa, that we are able to lift the veil. But actually, we cannot say we. All right, Allah has lifted the veil, the hijab from us, so that we may experience that unity, that oneness. All right, but for those who are not inclined, who, in a sense, all right, I'm not discouraging also, I am encouraging, and I spend my whole life trying putting myself, I mean, immersing in this intellectual tradition, all right, because, all right, it is, then you will also know what is it. Those who, for example, okay, do not know at all about this science or these sciences, all right, these intellectual sciences in our tradition, okay, they uh the they do not know the possibility of that knowledge, and they do not see behind the veil of all the existence, the mawjudat. They only see things as how they exist, as existence. They see books, they see sky, they see everything around them as just mawjudat, all right, not connecting back to the source. Well, perhaps they will say, oh, all right, the sky was created by Allah Ta'ala, but what is the significance of that? How does it affect, all right, their being? So those who do not study this, all right, in the sense, then they become very scientific. They just see things as existence, mawjudat. They do not see what we're trying, all right, they are not what we are trying to attain. At least we are striving towards it. Like Al-Ghazali, Imam Al-Ghazali says, when he evaluated the different schools of thought in his Al-Munkin min Abdullah, all right, he says they are all seekers of God. They are all seekers of the truth. All right, so in each of them, all right, there is the truth. But of course, we know that he has evaluated all the sciences, the schools of thought and all the different sciences, and he has come to a conclusion, and he has written about his conclusion. He says the path of Sufism or Tasawwuf, he says, all right, he guarantees to the extent of his knowledge, human knowledge, to the extent of what he has attained, all right, he is saying that this is the best and the shortest route, the shortest and the best. Well, he did achieve it during his lifetime. So in that sense, you can consider it short because people live their whole life, and they do not arrive at their destination. All right. But of course, the arrival will come after this life. But we want in this life. That's why Al-Ghazali, Imam Al-Ghazali said that for him, this is the path if you want certain knowledge. All right. So so I have explained to a certain extent, all right, that because these are not covered in the book, of course, you can read the whole book, you will get all the indications of what I have mentioned. Okay, so there's also Brother Bahlul Majnoon has raised a hand. Yes, brother, you have a question, is it?
Yeah, maybe Professor,
Yes.
when we talk about what existence, right, perhaps can differentiate because existence or wujud have a lot of meanings. It's mushtarak, right? So how do we differentiate between when Professor is talking about wujud, it means this is about the concept of mafhum, or when he says about wujud, this is about hakikah, or
Yes.
etc. Yeah. So perhaps maybe Professor can guide us along the way when
Yeah.
reading when reading this
This
book.
text, this
Yes.
chapter. Yes, brother, were you here from the first class, or you just
Yeah. I
joined?
just attended today.
Ah,
Yeah.
mashallah. So you just attended today.
Yes, yes.
We did touch already,
Okay,
right,
mashallah.
about this.
Okay.
But mm, and you know, basically, I would just you know, uh, since you asked the question, all right. Of course, we already mm, touched about this, but of course, briefly, okay, because we can have a few classes itself just talking about wujud. Okay, so we said about wujud coming from the word wajada, which is meaning to find, all right, and to find and basically to know. Okay, uh, and then of course there are different uh, 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 conjugations of the term, all right, uh, conjugations of the term, which you know I did not uh, go through deeply, all right, but perhaps, all right, what here is important, okay, first when we want to talk about existence or wujud, it is at the level of concept, all right, and here I will in fact, all right, will explain to you, okay, here a certain amount, all right, in terms of the concept of existence, in the sense that it's like you say mafhum al wujud, all right, that means you, what, for example, when you see things, all right, or you perceive things in the world, all right, you see things like books, bottle, table, right, and basically they are what is being called the quiddities, or uh, these are the things, the quiddities, or which answer the question, what is it? You know, when you open the window in the morning, what do you see? You see all the trees, you see the sky, all right, but here your mind can ask two fundamental questions about the things that you experience or perceive, and that is, does it exist? Of course, in terms of does it exist, you know it exists because you see it, or you touch it, or you feel it with your senses, all right. And the second question you can ask, what is it? Ma huwa or ma hiya, and that's where the term come from, ma hiya, meaning what is it, the feminine form, right? Ma hiya. So that is your experience, things, or you can say maujudat, things that those things which exist, right? And so how this concept of existence comes about is the mind, all right, takes the portions of things. These are portions, right? Portions of existence because of the fact that they exist. So the mind abstracts all these portions of things, which are basically the quiddities, because you experience them as things. You know, okay, your mind, all right, this is a tree, this is a bird, this is a horse, right? So these are the portions which your mind, all right, abstracts and generalize the thing that you see. They generalize it into the concept of existence. So that is the concept of existence, all right, briefly speaking. So you know all these things, they exist because of your experience of them. All right? So they are they, and what is formed in your mind are these things, these portions. But your mind wants to go more in depth. And then you will see, hey, what is that thing which I see? For example, a horse. All right? A horse, then your mind will start wanting to know logically. You see the horse, but you want to know the definition of a horse. What is a horse? All right, that is when, all right, your mind does this activity, all right, of defining the thing. And how you want to define the thing, all right, is through definition, all right. That's very obvious, definition. And here, all right, we give how do you go about defining a thing. And it was just what I mentioned just now. Okay, defining the thing is that you must have a genus. Meaning this horse, all right, what is the category that it is in? So then you say it's an animal, right? For you to know, is this horse a vegetable or a plant? All right, no. Okay, so it is an animal. So that's the genus, they call it, the category of thing. But as you know, that this horse, well, there are things, maybe you see the cats, all right, the dogs, the birds, aren't they also animals? They're also in that genus, category of genus. But then your mind will do this, like Prof say, classifying and these activities, all right? And then you will say, oh, okay, if they're all animals, but a horse is very different from a cat. So what distinguish a horse from a cat? I'm simplifying things, all right, but they are useful for us to understand, all right, the process. So then you will say, oh, a horse is a four-legged animal, but a cat is also a four-legged animal. All right, and then you will go through the process of finding the difference between these two animals or species in that genus. All right, perhaps in terms that the horse have, you must find the fundamental difference. Like the best example, of course, when we say human being, insan. Human being, what differentiates human being from all other animals? Rationality. All other things doesn't have rationality. All right? The ability to rationalize. Most of these animals, they have intuition or they have instinct. All right, human beings, we also have intuition, but we rationalize. So that is basically the difference between, for example, man and horse. Okay, so that would be the concept of existence. But here in this text, all right, what we are basically trying to study and learn and investigate, all right, is the reality of existence. We're not wanting, yes, all right, the concept of existence itself. So this concept of existence, all right, it can go when you talk about the concept of existence in terms of a living thing, an animal, in terms of a vegetable, all right, in for example, philosophy, the cosmology, the levels of existence is the basic level of mineral, and then the next level of plants, and then the next level of animal. Basically, that's the cosmology, all right, or the levels of existence. And the highest level of animal is human being. And then, of course, you go to the unseen realm. All right, the unseen realm of, for example, there's the jinn, and then there's, of course, the spiritual realm, the what you would say, the angels, malaika. All right, so but for example, the philosophers would, that level would be the akal, the intellect. All right, the ukul, the 10 intellects. All right, we don't go into all those levels. And of course, the highest being absolute wujud. All right, meaning God. Oh, you know, Allah Ta'ala. But here just now, the sister asked, all right, about that self-concealing aspect of Allah Ta'ala, which is not manifested. So that's why in Islamic metaphysics, they say there is a gap, a hiatus. All right, if for example, in Greek philosophy like Aristotle, all right, he talks about the chain of being, the chain of being. So from the mineral, the plant, the animal, and all that, all right, and the intellects. And then they say the first cause, which is God. All right, the first cause. But in Islamic metaphysics or in Islamic philosophy, all right, God is beyond also the first cause. And that is what we were talking about just now when the sister asked the question. All right, what is that aspect? And that aspect we cannot conceptualize. We cannot know because that is the hakikatul wujud. That is the reality of wujud, which Prof here says it can only refer to God. All right, so that level, okay, that's why I say there's a gap in Greek philosophy. All right, in Greek philosophy, all right, that's as far as they go. But for us, we go beyond. And that is what we are reading these texts. All right, because we are going through all the different levels of existence. So you say, hey, we do not know. All right, we do not know that level. Right? Yes, because it's unknowable in terms of we cannot conceive of it in our mind. Yes, but knowing that we cannot know is knowledge itself. Knowing that it exists. It is the al-ama, the that, and that basically comes from revelation, from the Quran, which all the Muslim scholars, right? In fact, from the hadiths, all right, and then it's the scholars who systematize all these disciplines and teachers come up with terminologies and systematizing things so that we know, all right, in terms of the details. So, so this is, so what we are saying is at that level, we do not know. That is the hidden treasure. It's self-concealing. But in terms of knowledge, we know that level exists. Like I said, those people who are ignorant of this discipline or this science, all right, don't even know. Because, like, for example, the scientists, I call them the poor scientists, not the Muslims who believe perhaps those modern Western scientists. Poor scientists, they just talk about this world, this physical world. The world is so small to them. That's why their worldview is small. But with this kind, all right, with this kind of knowledge, that there is a level where we do not know. All right, and there is that level basically where everything in the universe originates from. What kind of worldview does it bring about in us? All right, and therefore we put all the elements of the worldview, like for example, what's the concept of knowledge in Islam? What's the concept of love in Islam? What's the concept of the Quran in Islam? What's the concept of human being in Islam? Have to be situated in this larger worldview. All right, this larger metaphysical worldview. Larger, and you would say fundamental. There's nothing more fundamental than this. All right, so that is the reality. Okay, I haven't answered Bahlul Majnun just now. All right, I think I'm not sure. All right, is that your pseudonym or what? But Majnun, all right, Majnun. Well, anyway, someone who is Majnun. All right. So anyway, he has disappeared from my screen, but I haven't. So now I'm finishing uh, answering his question, because he says what's the different levels or concept or reality. So we say when you talk about existence, there are two levels. All right, in Islam, mafhum al-wujud, concept of existence. Like I said, the concept of existence coming from, if for the philosophers, from the mineral right up to God. All right, that's the concept. But the reality of existence, that's the at that other level, which we cannot conceptualize. It was synthesis between Al-Bahlul and Kais. All right, Amiri. All right, thank you. So anyway, I've tried to explain in a nutshell. All right, so there's another question. All right, would be the last question. Okay, so Khalid Bashir and Zahira Zulkifli. All right, two last questions. What are the questions?
Assalamu alaikum. So I'm trying to
Salam.
imagine. I'm trying to imagine it this way. So, for example, if there is a hierarchy of being, is it proper to put, for example, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala at the very top, so that we can somehow or is it improper because you cannot include Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in this triangle of hierarchy of being, because he
No.
is laysa kamithli shay, for example.
All right, yeah. No, it's not improper. Well, if when you are not sure about something, then you refer to the scholars, the experts, those who have knowledge. And Prof said, all right, following the Islamic intellectual tradition, which I say I always have to mention this, because a lot of people do not think what we are studying is authentic or legitimate. All right, because they think it is something which is foreign. When you start talking about these things, so which we share with other traditions. People say the Greek, the Plotinus, Neoplatonic. Well, that's a different discussion. All right. It's rooted in the Quran, and as we saw in the other, of course, Prof just mentioned this is from this verse, and we read the verses. All right. These are basically the interpretations, right? And here I want to mention, all right, the interpretations are not just you follow certain methodology, like what we always say now, methodology. All right, here the interpretations basically are inspired, as we saw, for example, because there are some scholars who wrote the process of them attaining the knowledge, which, for example, like Al-Ghazali, just just off the cuff. There are many others. All right, Imam Al-Ghazali. So if we are in doubt, like you say, is it proper? Yes, it is. Why? Prof Al-Attas said. All right, what are we studying here? Basically, the concept. I mean, is to arrive at the reality of God, but before you arrive, you must know. You must have knowledge. What is it? What is it? And so, therefore, he says that's the highest level, and basically, that highest level is basically Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And in terms of, like I mentioned, all right, you can break it down, because concepts are basically about breaking down things, right? Classifying things. Like, for example, definition. Aren't we breaking down things? What is the definition of human being? We are breaking down animal, rational. All right, and of course, then we also can explain it in other things. Animal laughing. All right, but they are accidents only, because there are animals which do not laugh. I mean, sorry, there are human beings which do not laugh, but human beings do laugh, right? But There are no human beings which do not have rationality. All right. So, like I said, concepts are about breaking down things or classifying, all right, things so that we can know. So that's how our mind works. Concepts, fragments, all right, things, mafhum, things which we know. Which, all right. So the notion of things. How do you know things? All right. This, how do you either define or you describe that thing, right? So you break down. And therefore, in terms of what we are doing, this is this is learning about what is the concept of existence. The concept of existence and concept of God. So now we know God, all right, in our Islam, in our tradition, which we call Allah, all right, is this at the highest level. So it's proper. What else can you call it? Of course, when you want to go into metaphysics, people will just say wujud. That's why, like Ibn Sina, they will say, wajibul wujud. He calls God wajibul wujud because he uses the terminology, the specific terminology in which he defines God as the necessary being. But religiously speaking, all right, he is Allah. And of course, you know, he is trying to define the term, Allah, all right, philosophically. But in terms of that's why I mentioned I answered the previous question, which what are we? That means there's no such thing as concept of God. Of course, what are we studying in philosophy? You know, all the different concepts of God. What is in terms of his nature, between the essence and the attributes, all right, in terms of the classification of being, all right, and all that. That's concept. But we must also know God is not that concept. He is that concept, but he is more than that concept. And that, when you want to talk about God, that is the reality. That is at the level of hakikah, hakikatul wujud. And that here, according to Prof, is when you talk about hakikatul wujud, at that level, it can only refer to God. Why? Later, all right. And it goes to the, again here, all right. Is there no shortcut? Yes, there's no shortcut to explaining things, all right, because he is the only real. He is al-haq, all right, and that's why he's the only one reality. Why do we say Kul huwallahu ahad? Why is there tawheed, divine unity or oneness? Of course, there are so many other things in this world, but it comes from the one. All right, so that is the reality. And you are asking a question which I cannot just leave it there. All right, so I have to go further. So when you say the reality, all right, the reality of wujud, so he is the only one real true being, al-haq. All right, and I mentioned in the previous class that, all right, in our tradition, all right, here Prof also mentioned, you can find the pages where he explained, all right, that God is the truth and the real. And that's why I also mentioned very briefly. Why? Because wajada is to know and to find, meaning epistemologically, all right, in terms of the subject who knows, all right, that is the truth. And reality is what is out there in the objective world, even though we don't see. There is that identification or that union. That's why in Islam, all right, there's the truth and the real. And therefore, that is what basically metaphysics is. To know the real, to know it as truth. All right, so now, when you say, okay, why we must not, because why that statement of Prof. Al-Attas, I think in the class before this, all right, he says that it can only, hakikatul wujud can only refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he's the only real. Then what is this world then? Some say it's not real because there's only one reality. But here, all right, following the tradition of the scholars, we would say less real. There is reality. That's why the poor scientists always think these are the real things, this phenomenal world, this is reality. All right, they have forgotten the other world or the world of this divine being. Okay, so what we are saying, perhaps later Prof can explain along the way. Okay, anyway, yes. I will try to finish up Brother Khalid's question when you say about the real. So you cannot say, is it proper? It's the only thing, the proper thing to say that the highest level, and in fact, we will see, is at the all-encompassing level. All-encompassing. That's why it's al-wujud al-munbasit. All right, all-encompassing level. Who are you referring to? What is that is the reality. The reality, all right, which is the only thing that exists, that reality. The others, all right, are manifestations. So as you can see later on, I'm jumping a lot of things, but it's fine, so that when you read, you have this already somewhat an image of the what we are studying. Okay, so this there are many metaphors. All right, I think Prof also explained in terms of the metaphors used. Shadow, dhil. All right, that means this world is shadowy, dhilli, right? Mullah Sadra says it's just shadow without the thing itself. For example, without, if you go outside, all right, if there is no you, is there a shadow of you? No, there's no shadow. All right, there must be a you first, the real, the reality. Then only the shadow manifests. All right, that reality manifests in the shadow. But if that real thing doesn't exist, is there a shadow? No. So therefore, is it real? When something, all right, comes in and out, only when then it is not reality. It's not real. What is real is the thing which stays. But of course, in terms of human being, I was just giving a metaphor just now, or an analogy. All right, the thing is, for as long as it stays. But here, for as long as it stays in relation to Allah Ta'ala. He is infinite. He's eternal. He's absolute. So nothing is not within his scope. When you say something is absolute, that means everything is in his scope. And if you say eternal also, in terms of space, all right, but in terms of time also, everything is within that infinitude. And here you have to go beyond that, even beyond, in the sense, right? This is what we are going to deal with, this thing about delimitation, beyond even this limitation of absoluteness. Okay, so that's what I am trying to say. So all these things, all right, Ibn Arabi, he uses they use, you see, these philosophers, they try to use language which the mind can know. All right, so Ibn Sina, wajibul wujud. Okay, but the Sufis, all right, they will use terms like or the metaphorical. But even the philosophers, all right, they also use, for example, like Mullah Sadra, shadow, but so the other, Ibn Arabi uses majazi, metaphorical. He says that all existence are just metaphorical. It's not real, he says. Or some, they will say, there's no reality. There's only one reality. All right. The philosophers will end up having to say, do you want to attribute reality to your studies, to yourself, to your, to other human beings? Do you want to attribute reality to that? No, we attribute reality to Allah Ta'ala alone. But insofar as we live in this world, I can say this bottle is real, so I can drink from it. Right? But is it real? Well, we know it has a expiry date. All right, it's not going to last. Okay, so basically that is it. All right, so that's why now, because when these Muslim scholars, they say they experience God, like you say Allah, which level of experience is it? No, they only experience Allah Ta'ala. And that is the level, all right, which Allah reveals himself to us at the highest level. Those who are given the gifts, who are fortunate enough, all right. But what we can know is just at the level of concept. And we know what this conceptual knowledge of God, what it means, all these things. But the reality, all right, that is because reality can only be experienced. All right, so for me, all right, that is not improper. That's the only thing that we can say. What is it? God. All right, so inshallah, as we go along. All right, last question. All right, Zahira Zulkifli. Okay.
Talking about existence, sometimes I come across the word wahdatul wujud. What is that?
All right.
What's wrong with it?
There's nothing wrong with it, Zahira. Well, in my class, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you go to other classes, I mean, in the class of from the tradition that Prof Al-Attas comes from, which he has traced the lineage or the chain of transmission, all right, the sanad or the silsila, which we may call it, there's nothing wrong with the term. Basically, what we are doing is wahdatul, is, you would say, elaboration and explanation of wahdatul wujud. The term, all right, even though a lot of people say that the doctrine, meaning the teaching, right, came from Sheikhul Akbar Ibn Arabi, all right, but apparently he didn't use the term. It was his commentators, and the commentators are the, you would say, the pensyarah, the syarah, those who do the syarah, meaning those who explain. All right, they are basically, when they want to explain of their master's works, they have to add value to it, right? So therefore, they will try to use certain terminologies, certain classifications, certain metaphors, certain terms to try to explain, make things, to clarify, right? To clarify things. All right, so it may be understood. All right, although some of the Sufis say, well, it's their problem, they don't understand what I'm writing. All right, some say, well, you have to experience it. But the philosophers, or those from the intellectual tradition in Islam, all right, they write this way so that we can, in terms of the concepts, trying to explain, elaborate, formulate terminologies and all that, so that we can understand, even though we do not experience it, but it's close to experiencing it. The fact that we know, all right, is how much do we know? That's why everything is hierarchical. You know, how much do we know? How many years have you studied? Well, some have studied 20, 30 years, but still not at the level of somebody who has studied 10 years. All right, there are many factors to that. But of course, finally, it's by the grace of Allah Ta'ala that, you know, he understands, maybe because his mind is open. He doesn't have, you know, things which are obstacles to him knowing. You know, now perhaps some forms of ideologies which he, you know, personally hold, or if, like Prof says, corruption of knowledge. All right, some Western, not to say Western knowledge is bad, in terms of, for example, elements, all right, which do not believe in metaphysics. Everything is just, what you would say, scientific, phenomenal. Everything, knowledge is about the phenomenal world. All right, so how I would answer your question, what is wahdatul wujud? All right, Zahira, patience. All right, so basically this whole class, all right, whatever, inshallah, or in fact, all right, the text which Prof Al-Attas is writing, has written, all right, and especially the metaphysical parts, which are the last 3 chapters, all right, on the intuition of existence, all right, on quiddity and essence, and the third, which is what we are studying, the degrees of existence, all right, the metaphysics, you would say, are basically elaboration, explanation, clarification, demonstration, all right, of the concept or the doctrine of wahdatul wujud, which they usually translate as the transcendent unity of being, or they call it the one, the transcendent, or the oneness of being, or oneness of existence, whatever. All right, so Brother Bahlul, all right, you have to keep the question, all right, because we mentioned just now Zahira's question would be the last one. All right, not saying keep it to another session. Okay, so I hope I have explained or answered your question somewhat. All right, so this is wahdatul wujud. You want to simplify things. All right, you want to simplify things. Basically, what this is wahdatul wujud. But like we say, all right, that is something which is a term which the Ibn Arabi was, I don't know from who was the one who Kunyawi, all right, who started using the term to explain Ibn Arabi's elaboration of metaphysics, all right, because if what basically, all right, to make things simple. I know there are many students who also ask me this question, and some of them want to get into polemical discussion in the class because I suppose they hear other perspectives or other aspects. All right, so make it simple. Wahdatul Wujud is the scholars who want to explain about Tawheed, oneness of being. And basically, this is one of the explanation when we are talking about all the multitude of things, but here we are going back to the one. There's only one. And there's also beyond, I mean, that one in terms of the level where in which we know, all right, there's only one. There's only one Al-Haq, one of the names of Allah Ta'ala, or the attributes, Al-Haq, the truth, the real. There's only one. So basically, that is what our scholarly, the tradition of scholars trying to, how they interpret, they explain, they elaborate, they systematize, they write, whatever. That concept. Okay? So, all right, there was some participants, all right, who said that the connection is not good. Is it true that they, sometimes they can't hear me? You can't hear me. Is it true?
For me, it's okay, Prof.
The connection, they say, I don't know because I'm doing it in my office. And of course, in UIA, there's some instability, all right, of the connection. So if the problem is serious in the sense that you really cannot hear me for 10 minutes, more, please inform, all right, so that we can do something about it or whatever, all right, or we are informed, all right. So, but if it's like lagging a bit or just a couple of minutes, all right, we forgive technology. All right. So, well, Sister Afsana says that is all right. So, Alhamdulillah. Okay. That participant did say maybe it's on their side. It's on that the what is not stable. All right. Finally. All right. We must read the text a little bit, no matter how little. Okay. So, okay. Brother Arif, page 272, right? Brother Arif, we ended at that page 272. That where it states there, footnote 299, right? So that's where we ended in the last class. But remember, he was talking in the foregoing paragraphs. Prof. Al-Attas was talking about natural universal. And this concept is very important. It all, has to do with, the conceptual knowledge as opposed to the reality. All right? Wujud, that's why I told Bahlul just now, I prefer to call you Majnun, all right? Because Bahlul, all right, not very, you would say, positive. I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether that's your natural name. So anyway, just now the brother asked, okay, so I said I will explain. All right, in terms of existence, what do you mean by existence? This is part of the explanation. Okay, part only. So anyway, so Prof mentioned about this universal. Okay, here he is saying, all right, this concept of natural universal. all right, it refers to quiddities. All right, meaning when you talk about quiddities, he is saying things, right? All right. So now, okay, shall we the nature? Okay, which one is? Perhaps we just go to the line. All right. So further up, further up. I can't read the whole again, just to situate. Arif, never mind. All right. Maybe Arif is Arif. Just go up. So when we wait, hold on. Eh, where is it? Dynamic active. Here. So, okay, here. So when we, okay, remember that degree of absolute existence, al-wujud, al-mutlaq, okay? So when we liken this degree of absolute existence to the first aspect of quiddity in Ibn Sina's scheme. So this is what I want to explain. Because basically Ibn Sina who formulated it. We do not thereby mean, all right, that absolute existence, all right, in virtue of its absoluteness, all right, is identical with the natural universal. This is because the nature of the natural universal, as understood by theologians, mutakallimun, and philosophers, the falasifa generally, and whether it is applied to quiddity or to existence, is held to be something mental, having no corresponding reality in the external world, which is the position of the mutakallimun, the theologians, or it is something both mental as well as real, and having a corresponding reality in the external world, the position of the philosophers. In the sense that the words real and reality here refer essentially to quiddities considered as dissimilar realities and not to existence. Okay, so here the term natural universal, you will come across this term when you read philosophical text, metaphysical text, or in fact kalam text. So here we want to understand what is meant by that. For the mutakallimun, you will see in the later pages of this chapter, all right, Prof already sort of systematized, all right, the difference between the mutakallimun, the philosophers, and the Sufis. Okay, there's some similarities, some differences. Okay, here, here refer essentially, so that's why we had to go back to the basic. What was the basic? The basic difference between wujud and mahiyah. Right? That was the basic. After we explained about existence, then we talked about the difference, the fundamental distinction between two things. Hal huwa, meaning is it or does it exist, and mahiyah, all right, quiddity. Hal huwa meaning does it exist or existence. So everything you can ask, you can look upon it, or you can ask two fundamental questions. Does it exist, or is it, or and what is it? So that's why we had to go, because when we want to go further, all right, there is a distinction, all right, between the two. And I've also explained to a certain extent. Okay, and not so for the philosophers, it refers to both this natural universal, both to quiddities and existence. For the theologians, only to quiddities. Okay, page 299. All right, so now I spare you the homework. Sorry, not yet, Arif. I spare you the work of locating back. We go to page 222. Okay, page 222. Remember, I said we will cross-reference because the chapter is the last chapter, right? So page 222. Okay, not page 222. Page 221. Sorry, Arif, page 221. Okay? There, when we consider. Okay? So now, when we consider the quiddity of a thing, we conceive it either in the thing itself as it exists in the external world, all right, or as it exists in the mind. The nature of quiddity as conceived by the intellect has three aspects. All right, so you understand that when we look at something, the bottle, we conceive it as either in the thing itself, we conceive it either in the thing itself, that means the quiddity of this thing, which is its bottleness, which makes it a bottle, as it exists in the external world. All right, so this bottle exists in the external world as a bottle, or as it exists in the mind. So there are two aspects. That bottle also exists in the mind as a concept. All right, meaning what is it? It's a bottle where you put things, a drinking bottle, you put not things, you put water, and from which you can drink. That's the concept. Or you, when you say a quiddity also, you can say it as being existent in the world, in the sense that right in front of you, it exists, but it exists as a drinking bottle. Okay, so this is what he means. The nature of quiddity as conceived by the intellect, and when we talk about it as being conceived by the intellect, has three aspects. All right, 238. And here, if you look at the footnote, all right, here footnote 238, it says the nature of quiddity, mahia, as understood by reason, was first systematically analyzed and formulated by Ibn Sina. See his Al-Shifa, Al-Mantiq, Al-Madkhal. All right, so that's where Prof referred to. Okay, and Sabzavari, you know, Sabzavari came after Mullah Sadra. He was a student. All right, Izutsu, the Japanese scholar, which Prof says wrote one of the best on Islamic metaphysics in English. You can, you know, I'm not sure whether you have the PDF in English, all right, on the title of the book, The Concept and Reality of Existence. Okay, so anyway, so, okay, now let's look at the three aspects. First, as pure abstraction, okay, mujarrada. All right, when you say mujarrad, all right, pure, that means taking away all other things. That's what it means, mujarrad. Mujarrada, since it refers to mahia, it's feminine, right? As pure, I think, yeah, as pure abstraction, unrelated to anything or to any mind. Quiddity in this aspect is completely independent in itself and cannot be related to any other concept. The concept of animal as it is in itself, for example, is nothing but pure animal and cannot be predicated, all right, of the concept man, because man, all right, next page, man signifies something more than pure animal. All right, so this is the concept of mujarrada. All right, so here he will apply this. All right, how you can view these three aspects which Ibn Sina formulated. He says first, yes, but he applied it to quiddity, mahia, okay? So this pure abstraction, mujarada, that means here, okay, pure abstraction, unrelated to anything or to any mind. Okay. What level is it? Okay, so unrelated to anything or any mind, quiddity in this aspect is completely independent in itself. All right, sounds like that level which we were talking about, but only in relation to the reality of existence. But here, it's in terms of quiddity, mahia, as opposed to wujud or existence. So quiddity in this aspect is completely independent in itself and cannot be related to any other concept. And here, for example, the concept of man, all right, as rational animal. Okay, here, Prof says the concept of animal as it is in itself. For example, is nothing but pure animal. It's not related to any concept. This concept of animal. All right, as it is in itself, for example, is nothing but pure animal and cannot be predicated, all right, or explained of the concept man, because man signifies something more than pure animal. All right, so here he say it's just pure animal. You cannot refer it to anything else but the concept of animal. No other concept can be combined with it. When you talk about man, you are combining the concept of rational or rationality with animal, right? And that's how you came about with the definition of man, rational animal. But quiddity, all right? Quiddity meaning at this level, all right, the quiddity of a thing, meaning what is it? All right, at this level, which is pure abstraction or mujarrada, Prof says it cannot be related to any other concept. So therefore, animal, the concept or the quiddity, you can say, of animal cannot be related to any other concept. All right, of perhaps some other things. Here, he gave the example of man. Or you can say horse or whatever, any other species. Why? Because man, all right, if the concept man is the concept of animal, all right, is rationality, all right, is added to the concept of animal. If the concept rational were added to animal, in this case, it would not produce a coherent combination, since animal as pure animal cannot be qualified by rationality. So just look at it as this, mujarrada, pure animal. You cannot combine it with any other concepts. That's the first aspect, the aspect of mujarrada. All other concepts, if you want to talk about horse or man or whatever, there's always a combination. All right, but here, it in itself, the concept of animal in itself. So that's the first aspect, all right, of when you talk about natural, universal, all right, the nature of quiddity as conceived by the intellect, okay, as three aspects. And this is the mujarrada. Then the second, as absolute indeterminate, mutlaka, unrestricted, by unrelatedness to anything, and free to engage itself in individual things. All right. Sounds familiar when we explain. All right. Earlier, the previous class. Okay. Unrelated, and this basically is bishat la shay. All right, the first one. Then the second, absolute indeterminate. This is the second one. The first one is the unconditioned by unrelatedness to anything. Bishat la shay. Then second, absolute indeterminate. Mutlaka. Free to engage itself, not conditioned by unrelatedness to anything in individual things. La bishar shay. Okay, don't worry, this is all written. Okay, I'm just making things simple for you. I located it already. All right, so here, this the level, and you want, so you see, this is to explain to you also about metaphysics. Then you will say, how do this, this urafa or hukama or philosophers or the Sufis or whatever school of thought, intellectual science, the disciplines they come from, all right, and they have mentioned about their experience. How do you think they have, okay, for example, we say the philosophers, all right, they experience the reality of wujud. So now they want to try to explain it, to rationalize their experience. And that's how we get this knowledge. How did Ibn Sina came up with this? And he was called the philosopher of being par excellence, all right, even in the Western philosophical tradition. He came up with this explanation, all right, of quiddity. It's his mind working when he experienced things. All right, or you can use it, or you can turn it the other way around and say he experienced wujud, and now he wants to rationalize, explain it. All right, what is it that he has experienced? But he wants to explain it in the discipline that he is in, which is philosophy or hikmah, falsafa or hikmah. All right, so therefore he must systematize it in a very comprehensive. That's why most of the philosophers, all right, you read about their works, all right, this is always like a very comprehensive, holistic system. And most of them, like Al-Farabi, for example, or Ibn Sina, I'm just giving another example. Al-Farabi, who is considered the second teacher, he came before Ibn Sina. All right, you read about his Al-Madinatul Fadila, the virtuous state or the perfect state. You are going to find only the last few pages in terms of politics. He starts with metaphysics. Then he's, epistemology, ontology, epistemology. Then he talks about ethics. There's no politics without ethics. Right? He talks about, you would say, about the virtues and the vices. Basically, that's ethics. Right? I mean, in Western terms, or you would say in our tradition, ahlak, ilmul ahlak. All right, science of character. So basically, all right, so I just want to explain to you, how did these people come about, then you say, about with all these concepts, right? Trying to explain to us, all right? Trying to basically formulate a nature of reality, a picture of reality, or you would say the worldview, a worldview. Okay, so here in the philosophical tradition or discipline he's in, and you know the terms that he used, of course there are some terms which overlaps. All right, not this mutlaka and all this, but wujud and mahia, it overlaps with Greek philosophy, with Aristotle. So they say, it's Greek. But of course, the concepts, they Islamize it. Some they succeeded, some they didn't. But because they were discussing, writing, trying to elaborate or interpret within the philosophical worldview, philosophical tradition. You know, I have to explain to you why Greek, why not Indian, or why not Chinese? They have their philosophy. But, you know, why Greek? Yes, why Greek? That's another story. All right, but basically because of historical interaction. I mean, because of the encounter, I would say, okay, between Islamic and Greek civilization. So anyway, so this is what we are saying. So they experience and then they formulate it, they conceptualize it. Okay, so here the second level is absolute indeterminate, mutlaka, unrestricted by unrelatedness to anything. All right, it is unrestricted to unrelatedness to anything. And for me, it's simpler for you to say, all right, so double negative here, right? So if you want to, us to, you know, I also am a student, I try to make things simple for my own myself. All right, so, and free to engage itself in individual things. All right, you remember that later phrase, which is simpler for me, but perhaps for some of you, all right, that first part is more simple for you to understand and remember, but for me, that second part, and free to engage itself in individual things, because it is not restricted by any kind of unrelatedness to anything, unrestricted by unrelatedness to anything. That means, what does it mean? And therefore, it is free to engage itself in individual things. All right. So the concept of animal, in the case of quiddity in this aspect, is no longer restricted to itself as pure animal, as mujarradah, the first aspect, but is indeterminate and has the potentiality of being predicated of other concepts in a coherent combination. See? So that first one cannot conceive. What is animal? Pure animal. Pure animal. This one, you can. All right? You can predicate it to another concept. So it is no longer restricted to itself as pure animal. But this is example, but is indeterminate and has the potentiality of being predicated of other concepts in a coherent combination. So when the concept rational is predicated of animal, here it Prof is not in the room. No. All right. Sorry about the interruption, but I didn't realize my battery ran out, and now I'm using the charger. So inshallah, we'll have another 8 more minutes, and we can finish off these three aspects, inshallah. All right. So we were at the second aspect, right, which is mutlaka. So when the concept rational is predicated of animal, all right, here it produces the composite in the form of the concept man. So man, rational animal, right? The concept man is made up of the concepts of animal and rational. All right, animal is the genus and rational is the difference, specific difference or fast compared, and animal is hayawan, which is the genes. So animal in this case can be predicated of man, since animality and rationality are constituent parts of man. So then you get this picture of man, rational animal, but this concept of animal is not purely, all right, pure abstraction where it cannot be integrated or cannot be predicated of any other concepts except itself, which is animal. So, and that is that level, all right, which is, can you know about animal, all right, besides of its existence, if it is not, if it doesn't have any attributes or predicates of other concepts? No, right? So this is the second level where the concept animal, all right, is combined, all right, that it produces the composite meaning combination in the form of the concept man. All right, when the concept rational is predicated of animal. All right, so this is animal, you predicate rational to the animal, and what is produced? Man, rational animal. So animal in this case can be predicated of man, since animality and rationality are constituent parts of man. So that's the second level. Okay, this mutlaka. Third level, Arif. All right, then we stop here. So same as in two above, the second mutlaka, and present in the mind, all right. If you look at the footnote 240, present in the mind means that the mind is here actually attending to a particular object. That means my mind is attending to this bottle here. Okay, so the third, same as in two above, and present in the mind, all right, where it receives various accidents. All right, here accidents not as in the accident, car accident, but as in arad or arad, which is, you would say, properties or qualities of things. All right, here such as predication, all right, universality, particularity, and the like, whereby the aspect of quiddity here is mixed. So mahluta, all right, so this mujarrada, mutlakah, mahluta. All right, so when you talk about that second level, all right, it's mutlaka in the sense that the concept of animal can be mixed with anything. Here he's just giving an example, all right, animal with rationality then becomes man. All right, so it is still at the level of mental here. So, but the three and present in the mind, that means the same, totally the same as in the second, but it present in the mind in the sense that your mind is attending to something, is looking or perceiving something, which for me here is the bottle. So where it receives various accidents such as predications, whatever you predicate of that thing, universality, particularity, these are all terms, all right, philosophical terms and concepts and the like, whereby the aspect of quiddity here is mixed. Makhluta, as when the concept of animal refers to what is already actualized in the external world as something specified as rational. So animal thus specified refers to an object of the external world to a particular man. All right. So the third, all right, this mix, you are referring to something in the external world, which is, all right, here, a particular man. At the second level, it's still conceptual. And so therefore, that's why it says unrestricted. It can attach itself to any individual things. But at the third level, okay, this third aspect of makhluta mix, all right, it is basically actualized in the external world. So when you talk about man, at the second level, it's still conceptual. It is rational animal. But at the third level, it's a particular man. You're talking about what? Man. But that man is a specific man that you are talking about. Do you understand? Man. All right, women don't feel left out. It's man and woman. All right, it's a generic term, insan, right? Not rajul. So anyway, man, as you know, in the generic term of before, it was used to be referred to as man. All right, now with being politically correct, they have to say man and woman. All right, because the woman do not want to feel left out. But this is a term. All right. So anyway, here, animal refers to what is already actualized. So it's already actual out here. This bottle, it's not a concept in my mind anymore. Okay, as being a container which water can be filled in. All right, it is a specific bottle here. Refers to what's already actualized in the external world as something specified as rational. Just now the example, man as in rational animal. So animal thus specified refers to an object of the external world to a particular man. All right. See, so just now Bahlul asked that this is really the different stages. But here, Ibn Sina is just talking about quiddity. All right. In terms of and which is called the universal, natural universal, which is at the first level. So here I just want to read to give continuity. All right, just be patient. The same quiddity as considered by the intellect under the guise of these three aspects is called, in the first case, all right, I've already mentioned, conditioned by unrelatedness to anything, bishart la shay. In the second case, not conditioned by unrelatedness to anything, la bishart shay. And in the third case, conditioned by something, bishart shay. It's conditioned by something. The first refers to quiddity in relation to prime matter. All right, this is another philosophical term. No time to explain. The second to genes, all right, genus, because animal as a genus. The first one as in prime matter, pure. All right, you can say, I used to tell my student it's a concept, all right, in philosophy, but it is prime matter, meaning mujarrad, all right, cannot be conceptualized. The second to genus, and the third to species, all right, which is noun. That means a specific thing which is actualized. Man is a specific species. At the second level is at the level of concept. all right, the level in relate, and second to concept of genus, all right, that category of thing. But the first, prime matter. What is prime matter? Okay, you can look at the footnote. Prime matter, maddah, right? Footnote 242 in Al-Isyarat wa Tanbihat, all right, volume 1, page 184, that's Ibn Sina's work. The term maddah signifies prime matter, all right, as also signified by another term, hayula, all right, which is from the Greek, highly. But maddah tends more to refer to elemental matter that receives generation and corruption. Meaning here, pure abstraction in the sense that, you know, it is just maddah, matter. You see, this is another term which you can think of, which is very important in philosophy when you study matter and form. Matter, maddah, and form is surah. So when you talk about something, all right, you can talk about the matter, meaning what is it made of, and form, basically what is the shape or the structure that it takes. All right, so enough for us to know, all right, because it's not a philosophy, I mean, knowing all the terms, but you, as long as you have a working knowledge of it so that we can proceed. All right, so there's what is, you see here, mujarradah, this concept. What is prime matter? What is prime matter? That is the first aspect of the quiddity, and which before we applied to the reality unknown. Second, where there is a certain knowledge of it in terms of understanding conceptually. And the third is actualization of the thing itself. All right, so basically that's what it means. Okay, so I think that means at the level of species here, Prof talked about. Second, the level of genes. All right, animal, pure animal, animal. And then the third, and the first, all right, pure abstraction. Okay, so wallahu alam, completely independent and cannot be related to any. And second, just to make sure, right, in the case, it no longer restricted as pure animal. Sorry, that's the second. But the third is the one which is actualized. All right, so if you want to remember, the first prime matter, second genus, third species. Okay, so wallahu alam. So inshallah, all right, you have, we have learned what, all right, from this class. We read just a little, but I think we learned about certain necessary concepts to move on further in the text. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Barakallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you, Prof.